Hi everyone, Stacy Casson here. For those of you who can't see me, I'm a very tan woman with short, wavy salt and pepper hair. I have a yellow flower in my hair today, clear glasses, and I'm wearing a gray, black and white scarf. It has stars and stripes. Yeah, go ahead and get started in tonight's Ask Me Almost Anything Live. As always, please put your comments, your questions in the comments. I do have some questions that I've heard, so I'm going to address them tonight. And we're going to get started, like I always do, by taking a deep breath in and just being present. Breathe in peace. Exhale cares of your day. Breathe in joy. Exhale your worries. All right, we're going to get started with the Pokemon of the day, and then we'll delve into your questions. So today's Pokemon is Judagon. Actually, not even seen this energy type before. I believe it is a dragon type, and Judagon is a dragon with kind of a blood red head, and he's totally armed with green armor with like red spikes, and he's in the mist and yelling. And that's a way to start the day with some dragon energy. It is the year of the dragon for those of you celebrating, well, that celebrated the Lunar New Year, and it warms its body by absorbing sunlight with its wings. When its body temperature falls, it can no longer move. So when I'm thinking about this and the energy it takes to power a dragon, I think what comes to mind for me is being able to self-regulate as you go through your day. If you don't regulate, you end up, yelling and screaming at people. So it's a good reminder to take some time to self-regulate, check in with yourself, make sure that you are at your highest possible executive functioning. And so that's Judagon. All right, so I'm going to start with our first question. And this was from Annette Maya. And Annette wants to know, how do you deal with people who just don't want to cooperate or work with you? How do you deal with people who just don't want to cooperate or work with you? So let's take a gander at what could potentially be happening. For this one, we get the green grass energy card. It's a green card with a glowing green sphere and a black leaf, a black stylized leaf. And I'm thinking that also green for me symbolizes like compassion, the heart, caring. So you're trying to work with people, and I assume that you are trying to act in the most compassionate way possible, and perhaps they're not. I always personally, when I am in a situation of conflict, I always reflect, what is my role in this conflict, because conflict doesn't happen without two people. So what role do I play? Am I understanding the situation correctly? Am I only focused on my needs, or am I trying to create a win-win situation? And yes, sometimes there are no win-win situations. If one person maybe doesn't agree that you have the right to exist, we're not going to find a compromise, and that may be something to table or move away, or see if you can delegate to another team member or person. Love people from afar is what my cousin would say. So what's happening also when I'm thinking about grass energy It's that there's kind of an imbalance. Something is not grounded, something is not working as a cohesive ecosystem. That's like my word for the week, is an ecosystem. Because in nature there's definitely fights, there's squabbles, there are territory disputes and things of that nature, but everything works together to make a cohesive unit. And when it's out of balance, you get things like fires or climate change, an increase in populations because the predators or the food source aren't there to balance that out. So it's kind of thinking that this lack of cooperation is a lack of balance, and people's needs are not being met for whatever reason. So your needs are not being met because you're trying to work with the other person, and perhaps one of the reasons they're not working with you is their needs are not being met. So hopefully you can have a discussion with them about what is happening. We're not aligned on our vision. I really like this framework about change management. And that's another thing that I use to try and determine where there's potential gaps in misunderstanding. And I don't have the name of the person that came up with this frame, this idea of vision. Do you have a common vision? Skills? Perhaps a person doesn't want to work with you because they don't have the skills and they don't want to look incompetent. Motivation. What's their motivation? What's in it for them? So are we aligning with their needs again? Resources, do they have the proper resources to do what it is that you're trying to accomplish together? And is there an action plan? Do we have steps and a way forward? Is there a common understanding of the way forward? So that could be what is happening. I don't know your particular situation, and this is my best guess with some ideas and things to help you. So, what's the challenge? And oh, it's our buddy Krogunk again. Krogunk is like a lizard Pokemon. It's a deep blue, has yellow eyes, red cheeks, and like red sacks on its handle, and a like a yellow belt with a black top. And Krogunk is hanging out behind a tree in the dark or in the dusk. And Krogunk is a poison type Pokemon. Sorry, it is a fighting style Pokemon, but it has poisonous. So the cheeks have certain poisons, and apparently the poison in its hands can actually help with headaches. So I think that is this challenge that you're having, perhaps a poisoned interaction for whatever reason. And Krogunk also has swagger. So that perhaps someone in the party is putting up a front. Again, they don't want to back down because they want to look big and bad. So that could be some of the issues that you're having. Like that's the challenge when people don't want to work with you. They're kind of throwing poison, for lack of a better word, but they're not like aligned with what is happening for whatever reason. But the good news that I like about Krogunk is that because some of its poison is harmful and some of its poison is helpful, I like that seeds of creation are also part of the destruction. So generally, if people are both parties are willing to listen and work together, I mean, really listen, deep listening, then the seeds of the solutions are probably within the conflict. It's trying to get a better understanding of your conflict and how you can close the gap with people that don't want to cooperate or work with you. And so, what's some advice for that? We get the Steel Energy Pokemon card, and this one's kind of gray and it has a glowing steel ball with a black inverted triangle with brackets around the corner. So I'm thinking of, in this particular case, a container, a framework for your discussion, having rules and boundaries to figure out the rules of engagement and or cooperation with this person. I know this isn't a hazardous symbol on the steel thing, but I always think about when is it getting dangerous, and also keeping a boundary, like protecting your space and your energy in these interactions. I do think some personal boundaries are helpful in this situation. Like, what are you willing to compromise to create a win-win situation? What are they willing to? And do these things align? Steel is a strong force, so flexible, and it's a good conductor. So trying to create a situation where that conversation can be conducted between the two of you, or I don't know how many people you're working with that don't want to cooperate with you, but that might help set up a flow. Having a framework, having clear established goals, clear established boundaries, and a clear way forward might help to mitigate that situation. Perhaps I'm hoping that for your situation, it is just a misunderstanding. But knowing where you draw the line and what is your must do, and their must happen for that to be a viable situation. So what are some possible ways forward? And I'm going to go with the first one is, hopefully this is a positive outcome. And you have Surskit, which is a water type Pokemon. Apparently I just learned it's also like a bug type Pokemon. So it's like a little water bug. It's a blue bug with four legs and a little kind of yellow acorn looking hat. And it has rosy pink cheeks, and it's skimming along the water, along the surface. And I believe that agility and willingness to skim over some things might help this situation. When this Pokemon senses danger, a sweet fluid oozes from the top of his head, and the taste of it, sends away predators. So there's also that, being back and forth and nimble, and understanding, when is this not going to work? When is this now something that is a dangerous situation and I need to get out of here? And that is also an option, leaving. But I think if you get that person to come to the table, willing to be nimble and agile, skim over some things, you don't always have to go deep on every single section, but like, what can you two agree on that can help this move forward? The other option might be, okay, when do I know it's time to cut and run? When's it time to fold? And you get Dynamo. Dynamo is a little white fish. It's an electric type Pokemon. So it kind of has like a little, it's kind of a weird, yeah, it's a yellow color, but it's playing with the red of my background. So it's kind of swimming upstream, and one alone is a little electricity, but a bunch of them together can make a powerful attack. So are you swimming upstream with this person, or are they getting on board? Is there anyone that can maybe work with you to get that collaboration? So it's building consensus, but also building up allies and people that can help you to get your point across. Maybe there's other stakeholders that can help you work with people. Like in a work situation, it might be, you might have to go up to their manager or someone else, or in a personal situation, perhaps there's a friend or a family member that you talk to that is good at getting a point across, like a mediator. So that might be another option if you can't work it out with that person. Is there perhaps a mediator that can help to build that momentum so you both aren't swimming upstream? So that's another option that can help with that situation. And if these tips work, you also had a great one to put it on pause and see what creative solutions come up for you. And that is absolutely another option in this situation. So those are some ideas on how to respond or work with people that don't want to cooperate or collaborate with you. Okay, I don't know what magical things are just opening up on my screen. Okay, I don't see any questions yet in the comment. So I'm going to go to some questions, and this is part of the um, breaking down capitalism workshop that Asmara is doing. You better jump in as yeah, Asmara Kazmi, ASMARAKAZMI, or Kazmi. I honestly don't know how to pronounce your last name, my friend. But there's some good reflection questions as we begin this process. So if you haven't signed up for it yet, I think you have until the 29th. They're not online tomorrow, so on LinkedIn anyway. So check their old posts and use the link to sign up. I need some water. Wow, I made that a little too hot, but that's okay. All right, so the first question is, what do I believe to be true about capitalism? And then from that, how have these beliefs informed how I show up in my career, community, and care? Off the top of my head, I think it's not the only system out there, but maybe a necessary evil because we haven't done something different. And it's impacted me because I don't want to be a part of it in some ways. So I've missed out on some opportunities just because I think they're unethical. So I don't want to be involved in it. And when I think about it from a Pokemon perspective, we do get the yellow energy lightning Pokemon card. It's a lightning energy Pokemon card. It's yellow with a glowing yellow sphere and a lightning bolt. So I also think when I look at this card, capitalism can be a polarizing issue, and it's the opposite of joy and self empowerment for me when I think about it, because we are so constrained in this kind of system when everything is the bottom line. So, how does this show up in my career and in the community? I think there's a lot of frustration with the fact all of us are basically begging, either begging for ourselves or begging for other people. And that line was from the Down Ballot. They're on Instagram if you want to follow them. And care, it's been really challenging to do things that bring me joy, that empower me in this kind of framework where we have to, well, for me, I can't speak for anyone else, where a lot of my choices are sometimes limited to, will this help me to survive today? Can I pay my bills today? Will my family be okay today? And we see so many obstacles to get anything done. There's so much bureaucracy with this type of system because it doesn't put people first, it puts profits first. So that's my initial thoughts on what I believe to be true about capitalism. And so perhaps what what are the challenges I find to my own beliefs? Like what are the things I'm second guessing myself, or what am I maybe missing about it? And wow, we get the dark energy Pokemon card. This is a navy blue navy blue card with a deep blue glowing sphere with a crescent moon. And I think this is very apropos because I don't look at dark as a negative word. I just look at this as the systems and undercurrents that maybe we're not aware of. We don't necessarily see them, but they impact the world. Kind of like I watched the movie Origin, which is it is it is showcasing how Isabel Wilkerson decided to write the book Cast, how that journey came about. And that's an example where everyone can see racism, right? That's kind of out in the open. But the premise of the book is that caste is truly the underlying function. And I think thinking about caste, that functions a lot in capitalism. It's a very hierarchical structure. There's layers of who's on top. It's not a, oh, there was an awesome word and I cannot, holarchical, holarchical. It's a holarchy. It's a word that means whole. It's like HOLO, or um, that kind of structure that is a little more, no, that is decentralized. And I think that there's also this idea that consensus takes too long, and capitalism for me is more of a rush, 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 wait, whereas something else might take a little more time. Um, but it may not, because of all the obstacles and roadblocks that are set up by design in capitalism, because I think somebody always is going to be exploited. That's the whole point of it. So it's thinking about these two symbols, and one is, I mean, they just look like different colors. I mean, because one is very bright and one is that I don't want to go there. One is very sunshiny and one is more like the moon, the sun and the moon. Let's go with that. Um, and the sun is more obvious and happy, and the moon is like a time of reflection. And again, these are things that are underneath the surface. And also, part of that programming is in our heads. And sometimes the solutions or ideas that we come up with are limited by shackles of the current system. So I would definitely love to think of other other things involved, as I'm thinking about what I believe to be true about capitalism. So I think it is not something for self empowerment, but some people might think that, oh, well, if I can with an idea and function in this society, then I can be a billionaire and I too can be happy. Meanwhile, I think it's just there's all these systems and people pulling the strings underneath that. So what would help? And we have Snover, even though this is looks like diamond penguin on an ice sheet. It looks like a penguin crossed with an egg. It the top looks like a drill. The bottom is like an egg wearing red pants, and then the arms almost look like rockets. Oh, and it's kind of an ice shard. And I don't know if this helps me at all, other than feeling frozen and captured in this particular situation. In the spring, it grows berries with the texture of frozen treats around its belly. Okay, that's kind of cool. So, silver, I think, represents like the hidden potential that's out there, because a lot of times things are like encased in not glass, but it's kind of frozen out. You're kind of frozen out. Some of these opportunities have to be timed just right in this kind of system for people to succeed in capitalism. It is possible, but it's like Snover is all alone in the wilderness, and that's kind of how I feel. It's a very, for me, a very individualistic system. It does rely on a lot of people, but it is for, whoever's to succeed. And it being a grass Pokemon, I think there are seasons and times, but this one just seems out of alignment for me. So, continuing on the question of what do I believe to be true, the final thing is, okay, well, can I go forward with this? And honestly, Nummel's expression makes sense. Nummel is a camel, it's a fire type Pokemon. I'm going to assume, looking at this camel with very short legs, that it builds up fire and can explode and set off. And yeah, the magma in its body reaches 2200 degrees Fahrenheit. Its hump gets smaller when it uses fire type moves. So again, I'm thinking of something that's like a pressure cooker, and this was an idea that Joe Cardillo and Kay Stroll on their podcast, Kay Stroll's podcast, were talking about the situations that we create in the workplace. So I'm thinking mostly about the workplace and how do we tackle this pressure cooker? How do we I think a lot of us is what is the line? All men lead lives of quiet desperation. I think a lot of us in a capitalistic system just stick a pin in it, push things down because it's not a healthy system to express yourself. So that's what I'm thinking for the first question in this challenge is what do I believe to be true about it? And I'm always open for my beliefs to be challenged. So, are there any good things I see about this system? And then how have I absorbed and internalized these as traits, habits, or routines? Are there any good things about this system? Okay, well, let's see. Okay, well, the first I get for this particular question is Electabuzz. This is a lightning type Pokemon card. It looks like the Grinch and a tiger had a baby. It's got like a, a, a rounded head with very elongated whiskers slash cheeks and a tuft on top, and it has lightning bolts all over it, and it's bringing out lightning. So, I mean, as a system, there's a lot of excitement in capitalism, and I think that there are people that are very successful, and this one loves to feed on strong electricity. It occasionally appears around large power points. So I think there are some super duper successful things, and I guess that is something to look forward to. I mean, there are people that, depending on where they're at, like if they maybe they go to a different country and can work and send things back, or how trade can increase the GDP in locations. So, I mean, those things kind of make sense with capitalism. Um, that's about it. I mean, I guess there's some excitement to be had, and that's all I'm getting right now. But let's look at, before I continue on, what is the actual dictionary definition of capitalism? Let's see. It's an economic system in which private individuals or businesses own capital goods. At the same time, and this is just from Google, business owners employ workers, labor, who receive only wages. Labor own the means of production, but instead uses them on behalf of the owners of capital. So I guess another quasi good thing is that you can own things. I mean, it is nice to own my home, right? I can do with it what I, because I don't have a homeowners association. It's nice to own a car. But now and then I look about how does this impact the ecosystem that we live in? And, I'd rather be able to take public transportation or perhaps move to a model where we have walkable cities. So there are good things maybe when you have companies that appear to put their workers as something important and treat them as such. So if you in a capitalist system work in a company that you have a living wage and you enjoy the work that you do, then you can amass things. And sometimes things are fun. Sometimes it's nice to be able to have different adventures like travel. I think is made easier as a result of capitalism. You're not going through I mean, you have a passport or a travel visa, but based on where maybe everything was a its own little land and you had to pass through so many different boundaries or territories, maybe travel is made easier by capitalism. But I'm just getting a sense of connection. So it is a very well defined system. Things are standardized in some cases. So the Electabuzz kind of flows, but as we also see this, I just feel this creature is just growing and growing. So I don't know if that's really a good thing in the system, but it's good for some people. And the challenge with that is you get the single strike energy card, and it is a glowing orange fist in a black sphere surrounded by magma, and it's just crushing down on people. I think there's this illusion of strength, and sometimes when you make it big or you get successful, you get like a rush because there is a lot of money to be made in capitalism if that's what's important to you. Um, yeah, and how do I internalize these? I guess I still am motivated by money. I would like to pay my bills and not be unhoused and take care of my family. And then we get Jigglypuff, which is a fairy type Pokemon card. And Jigglypuff just always just looks in awe to me of things going on in the background. Sometimes it's like, ooh, ah, but sometimes the character just looks really scared to me. It's a pink, rotund little creature with cat ears and big blue eyes. And there is some, it looks like some snafu in the background. Like there's like a robot looking and maybe lightning in the sky, the vortex of evil. So I guess there's this communities that happen, maybe because we're all trying to survive this together. But that's another potential for healing in capitalism somehow. And then the last idea I have about it is Magnemite and fighting energy. So Magnemite is like a magnet. It's round with two, I think it has two, yeah, two U-shaped magnet arms, which are like positively and negatively charged. So the arms are facing in opposite directions, and it has like a little screw for a head and little hands for its feet. And this is next to a fighting energy Pokemon card, which is orange with a black fist and a comet. And I just think of resistance, and even within magnets, there's a repelling and attraction. And I think the comforts I enjoy as a result of where I'm based in our particular capitalistic society. I mean, if you're a worker that has access to a career, things you like, capitalism doesn't seem that bad. I mean, I definitely enjoy my life. I know I have a very privileged life compared to a lot of people around the world. Like globally, just owning your own home is you're part of like a global upper echelon in society. And I'm not going to lie, it's nice. It's nice to be able to go out and buy whatever within reason I feel like. And so that there's that kind of attractiveness to it as well. So that is my thoughts on, are there any good things that I see about this system? And then we have, what harm have I seen done to me personally or to those I know due to capitalism? And I will just say that my wounds are self inflicted for the most part. I mean, there's systems that prop them up, but I think a lot of the harm that has happened to me inflicted due to the systems that we are encountered. And so we get this trainer card with these little six pointed stars, and they're kind of glowing, and it says revive. And yeah, I think it's in the system we spend a lot of time recovering and renewing, because it's such an extractive system. And yeah, we spend a lot of time just trying to renew because if all it is take, 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 that's not very sustainable. And so we have things like vacation or whole self-care industrial complex as a result of capitalism. The harm for me, like I said, I'm going to just own what part I play in it is I drive myself too hard because I am terrified of being out on the streets. That really is what drives me. I do not want to be unhoused. Don't think I have the skill set to survive it. I don't know how people that have done it do it. I'll probably be the first one eaten in a zombie apocalypse because I just don't have those street smarts to do that. I mean, I have my own different kind of smarts. I am not a kick of making my own things where it's possible. Made my own pancake syrup, my own nut butter, but I'm not growing my own nuts to make all these things. But it's baby step forwards. So that's one aspect of harm that's happened as a result of this. Just it's just very extractive and it doesn't replenish anything. And then there's morlul, which it looks like a little mushroom. It's a white marshmallow looking mushroom with purple and pink caps, and there's glowing, I guess, spores around it. It's a grass type Pokemon. And I think it's oftentimes we're kind of lulled into this false sense of ease, especially if everything goes okay and it drowses the day away, sucking from tree roots, and it wakes up in the fall of night looking for a new tree. So I there's like a sense of home or groundedness. I mean, we have one, but especially I think it's an unstable system, especially when we're seeing what is happening all around the world as a result of extractive policies in Palestine, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Sudan, which has been happening for a long time, in Hawaii, all these places that have been colonized and continue to be colonized. I don't think that is a good system. And to me, that is a direct outcome of the nth degree of capitalism, where making money is more important than people's lives. And there's a fire energy Pokemon card, and this is an orange card with a flame, and this is a case to me where it's just out of control. This is a fire that is not in control. It is spreading everywhere. It is sucking up all the oxygen to keep going, and it does not want to be put out. And this is also just a representation of the world literally being on fire. Our lungs, the Amazon rainforest, is being burned for profit. Can't, can't eat money. You can't breathe money. And so and that ties back into the whole revive thing. So these are some of the harms I see as a result of capitalism and those policies and the militaries that it takes to defend all this capital, which is also not very good for the environment. And my last thought on that is this is a water energy Pokemon card, and this looks like a glowing blue comet with it's supposed to be a stylized water droplet, but sometimes it just seems like a giant cyclops coming down. And it's just like there's basic sustenance is at risk. Water, even water is something that is for sale in a capitalist system. So I think there's a lot of harm done because people can't get their needs met. There's no dignity in being a human being. You have to be productive all the time. And I don't think that's how nature is set up. Yeah, trees grow, things grow, but they don't have yields. Like a tree doesn't sit there and go, well, we produced 100 apples last apple growing season. This year we need to apple production to 130, no matter the cost. No, the trees work with whatever nutrients and environments are around it. So I guess a downside of more natural things is that there is loss. There is loss in the natural world. Like the world isn't perfect in the moment, but it's perfect as a system. In the natural world, you have predators and prey, you have fires, you have tornadoes and lightning, and there's all these scary, unpleasant, but in the big scheme of life, these things balance everything out. A storm washes things away. Even in the world of tarot, there is the Tower card, which is things fall apart. And sometimes things have to fall apart to be put back together. So, those are my thoughts about capitalism. And again, as Mark Cosme is running a whole workshop on dismantling it or thinking of a new system out there. So, highly encourage you to join that. And if you're tired of the old systems or ideas that you have had, please book a call with me. Let's discuss how to get you unstuck. Again, a clarity concierge is, I consider myself to be a professional Watson. I think most people are brilliant and they have the solutions to their life, like our friend Krogunk that we talked about a little bit earlier. Of our destruction also have the seeds of our salvation in one space. I don't see any questions yet in the chat, which is fine. I'm going to just grab a sip. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat or in the comments. And when I don't have questions, I'll just go through my favorite tool. One of my favorite tools, which is actually, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do start, stop, continue. And this is kind of in reference for surviving capitalism. If I wanted to have a new system out there, what would we continue? What would we stop? And what would we start? But I usually pull it in order of start and then stop. Just pulling them and I'll come out. And then continue. All right. So for continue, it's exploring. So with the dark energy Pokemon card, so it's exploring the undercurrents, the hidden motivations, that self-talk, and the ideas that we have about what is possible out there. Continue to research and get a really good grasp of the systems produce outcomes. So if we don't like these outcomes, how do we create a better system? So I would continue to explore all the undercurrents that make a system like capitalism work, function, or even be possible. What do we want to stop doing? We have Growlithe, which is a dog in a very barren, rocky place, but running across this rocky place. And it looks kind of smug, and its strength is a down. So I think maybe we should stop. Let's see, it's clever and loyal, but if a stranger tries to invade its territory, it barks threateningly. And I think there's this idea of this individualism versus a collective. I go back to trees, because trees that don't have good root structures, they will fall down. The trees that survive the storms are trees that have an incorporated root system. They call it the wood wide web. That's from a book, Entangled Lives. Mushrooms, but yeah, I think we should stop this what's in it for me and think about our collective. Think about 7 generations from now, which is one indigenous tradition. Think about, I mean, and it's a fire Pokemon card. How do we temper the fire and not have this barren space? I mean, this dog Growlithe looks really, healthy and smug, but just surroundings are so barren. Even though there's a blue sky and sparkles, there's no sign of life here. And finally, what do we want? We get the fire energy Pokemon card again. And again, fire can be out of control, but fire can be a very useful tool. It can cook our food, it can keep you warm, it can clear out debris or detritus so that you have land for planting things. And fire is generally associated with a spark. Billy Joel saying, "We didn't start the fire, it was always burning." And when you want to dismantle a system such as capitalism, what's a spark? What's something new to make a system that's more cohesive and that works for more people? So those are my thoughts on capitalism. And let's tie that into, I'm even going to tie that back into Annette's questions about when people don't want to collaborate or cooperate. And I think that's kind of directly tied to this idea that there's winners and losers, and we lack the imagination to create winners and winners, or to create the best possible outcome for the most possible people, building consensus. So let's kind of imagine, what would system where we build consensus look like? Like what would be happening there? And we start with Mareep. Mareep is a little sheep, and I love the art on this particular card. Sheep with a blue head and these conical ears, and Mareep has lightning energy stored in its tail, and the scene is very Van Goghish to me, and Mareep is kind of just looking at you. It stores a lot of air in its fur, and it stays cool in the winter and warm in the summer. So Mareep to me is about taking advantage of our situation, and when you don't need to use energy, you store it. You store it up. And this is a lightning Pokemon card. So when we're talking about building consensus, it's also about what things can empower yourself. Mareep is not alone. There's other Mareeps in the background, right? There's other part of these creatures in the background, and they're all in their own business, but they're together as well. And I think it's about things that can bring us joy as a species, but again, not at the expense of other things. I mean, we can't, if we just did anything we wanted, that's not sustainable. I was watching 20 billion years later, The Sandman, and the episode I was watching, the one of the characters was like, "Oh, it's a world without lies where you just get to do what you want without judgment." And that was not sustainable. I'm not going to give you the of it, but it wasn't sustainable. That's all I'm going to say about that. So, building consensus, it's how do we go with the flow, and again, take advantage of the energy and save it when it's not needed, but be able to hold on to it so that you can transform it and use it when necessary. It's kind of like photosynthesis. Plants, they follow the sun, and when they cannot, when they're things that they cannot break down, and that's where the fungus come into play. Plants can't break rocks and dirt. The fungus do that, and they get the nutrients and give it to the plants, and the plants use the photosynthesis and give the fungus like the sugars and things of such nature. So it's coming into balance as a community, but finding the things that spark joy in a setting, so not at the exclusion of everyone else. And what can be the challenge with building consensus? Those pesky undercurrents again. Here's that dark energy Pokemon card. It's a navy blue card with the blue sphere and the crescent moon. We understand everyone else's motivations. Everyone doesn't think the same. I certainly don't think the same as even the people I love. We have different ideas about how to accomplish things, but we always come together and have discussions and hash it out. And even if we disagree, in my particular situation, we still love each other. And when I hear feedback that strikes a nerve, then I know it's something I need to think about and incorporate it into our lives, because our lives touch other. We don't go this alone, and the decisions that we make have ripples into our community, into our environments. So it's paying attention when we're trying to build a consensus as to what are the undercurrents, what are the motivations and needs of the other people that we're directly encountering, and what's those impacts upstream and downstream. What lies beneath the surface? Why are we getting the outcomes that we're getting, and do we like those outcomes, or do we want to change? And how can we build consensus on what's the shared outcome that we want to have? And another fire energy Pokemon card. This one is an orange card with an orange sphere and a flame. And with the fire this time, I think it is illuminating what's important in the particular situation. What are our must do's? Like, generally, you have to, in the society we live in currently, what you do should be legal. It should not cause death or danger. And with fire, to have a sustainable fire, it's having the right kindling, enough oxygen, and the right fuel. So if we're trying to build consensus, do we have, like, the kindling might be the shared vision or goal, and the oxygen is having healthy discussions where even if we don't agree, we can still continue to work to have a common solution. And that might be, okay, well, what's really and truly important? What are the must haves, or the things that are not up for debate? And maybe with hearing different points of view and perspectives, it's not that they're debate, but perhaps we can expand what we thought about before. There's so many things in life that I thought I would never like them, and never say never. I mean, something as simple as ketchup. I hate ketchup. I don't like it. And then, I don't know, life happened, and then I would find things to put them in ketchup because of, wow, ketchup is delicious. Or change. I really did not like change, but I know it's inevitable. And through practice and getting comfortable, I have grown to change. Now I get bored when things don't change, but also me, I will eat the same thing for lunch every day because I also like the path of least resistance. But it's looking at what is important and what's the non-negotiables in a situation. Like, what is that shared vision goal, and what is the light, or what's being illuminated? What's the thing that will keep a healthy fire sustained? And finally, what's a way forward in building consensus? Wow. Back to the undercurrents. I think we really and truly need to listen for the needs. When I used to work in sales, we weren't listening to what the customer is telling you. The customer will tell you one thing, but what they're not telling you is the thing that they probably need. And it might be something that they don't recognize that they need. For example, I have my cool little logo that's in the upper right hand corner. And I didn't think I needed a logo. I had my logo that my kid designed, and somebody asked me if I was open to feedback. And I said, and they said, well, I think it would be really cool if your logo kind of showcase some of the things you do, like you work with these Pokemon cards and you are very energetic. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And I didn't need it, but what did I want? What I wanted was something that represented the person I was, something fun, and something that looked more professional. And I love my kid to death. Thank you, darling. I still love my old logo. It's still on a mug. But I love the new one because I wanted to take my life in a new direction. And there's that implicit need that I wasn't saying. And I convinced myself that, yeah, that's a good idea. This sounds really, really fun and new. And I think it will bring in what I want in my life. All right. I still don't see any questions in the chat. So, to recap, today we talked about how to work with people that don't want to cooperate or collaborate with you. And then we pivoted to thoughts and ideas around capitalism. And in capitalism, there are lots of people that don't want to collaborate or work with you. And so we tied in some of those parallels together, explored how to build consensus, things to stop, start, and continue when you're trying to do something new and different. And I think we'll close it out with just some deep breaths to reflect and give ourselves a moment about all the things that we've explored this evening. So, deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. So, the biggest takeaway for me with tonight's sessions were these undercurrents, underlying situations, trying to create win-win situations, building consensus. And I think that works across any environment or situation that you encounter, whether it be personal, whether it even be a situation internally. A lot of us are not aligned with who we want to be and who we are today. And we don't want to work with ourselves, but nonetheless to work with other people. So those are the things I'm thinking about, and maybe you can explore as well. What are those undercurrents, either that you're telling yourself or that you're not understanding from the people in the community that you're in relationship with? Tomorrow's live will only be on YouTube and Twitch. I am linking out of LinkedIn on Tuesdays in solidarity with my friends and with the global community that is using that as an option as we continue to demand a ceasefire. So then tomorrow's will only be on YouTube and Twitch, and then we'll be back in the fullness of all three medias. So look at that, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, evening, afternoon, whatever time you're watching this. I've been Stacey Casson, the Clarity Concierge. Thank you.